What's up, everybody? This is Matt of The Lifestyle Practice. We're together with my partners, Derek and Steve. We help dentists like you all elevate your lives and careers through dental practice ownership. I'm reporting to you from the road today, driving to visit some family, hands-free, of course. And I wanted to talk today about front office staffing because I know this is something that a lot of us are often thinking about with our dental practices. And I actually got a message from a member of our TLP podcast Facebook group. It was a few weeks ago, asking about what they should do for their own front office. And it was a great question. And I said, you know what? This is going to make a great podcast topic. I haven't talked about this recently or at all on the podcast, but it's something that's really important when you're managing your practice to get this staffing level right. I also just thought I'd talk about the year we've had in my practice because this front office discussion applies to how things have gone. It's been a great year. I'm not off traveling the country like Derek. I'm not off in Europe like Steve. It's so cool to follow those guys' journeys, and I am so happy for them that they're able to do these things with their families while their kids and all together they're in a position to just make awesome memories together. And honestly, those guys, they're very close friends. And honestly, I can just say I'm so happy for those two. I know how hard they work. I know how much they care. And to just see their successes and see them living out the things that we talk about and doing it so well and treating people well along the way, which is so important. It's just awesome to see. So anyway, it's crazy that it's almost the end of 2024 already in my practice. It's been another great year. I think we've grown close to 12% so far this year. And something that I was thinking about as I was driving today and just reflecting was this year, compared to other years in the practice, it just felt easier. And what I mean by that is it just felt like there was momentum in the practice. And we've talked about this sometimes before on the podcast, but building momentum in your business, building momentum in your dental practice, it's difficult. It's like getting that snowball formed at the top of the hill, and it takes effort to begin that push. But once you get that snowball built, and it takes a ton of work, and it can take a lot of time. But once you get that built and you push that snowball down the hill, things all of a sudden kind of start happening on their own in your business. That's not to say you could just ignore your business after you've put in that initial work. But that's how things have felt in my startup. We're in year 6 now, or going on 7. And a lot of the quote unquote easiness of the year has had to do with having the right people in place. And I can't speak more highly of my team. It's kudos to them for doing an awesome job. But I think part of the growth and the easiness of the practice has to do with learning over time how to be a better leader of people. And I'm certainly not taking credit for everything in the practice, but I can affirmatively say that learning how to connect with people, learning how to care about team members on a level much deeper than what can this person do for me has been one of the best shifts and changes in my practice. And I know that this has happened because I've had team members who have come up to me and we've had great discussions where we just all feel like there's less tension, there's less stress in the office compared to maybe year 1 or year 2. People can feel that, patients can feel that, and it's so important to lead in that way. And we talk about extreme ownership, we talk about leaders eating last. Those types of philosophies are so important in your practice. One of the really awesome things that's happened this year is a highlight of my practice this year has been the stability and the effort and the attitude of my front office team. That kind of ties into what we'll talk about today with front office staffing. The things we talk about in the TLP philosophies that we talk about and the things that we teach at TLP Academy are philosophies that I live out in my practice. I want to have a fairly lean practice and a lean team that gives a lot of effort and is rewarded for those efforts if our business is doing well through our bonus system. And it was even in 2 where I was planning growth for my practice, bringing on my associate who's been in the practice now for over 2 years. And I was planning for growth. And at that point in 2022, we had 2 front office team members. And I had ambitions of pushing to multiple 7 figures and just pushing and pushing. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to bring on another front office team member and do that a bit more proactively so that my practice could grow. But the error I made, and one of the things I want to talk about today is I didn't fully understand my front office. I didn't fully understand the roles that each person played. I didn't fully understand those specific team members' goals personally for their careers and just what they wanted to do and what they were good at in the practice. And I just thought, you know what? More people will allow us to grow. And I can honestly say it was a disaster. So at that point, we had 2 front office team members open 4 days a week with 2 doctors on one of those days and then single doctors on the other 3 days of the week. By adding a front office team member without any real direction in doing so, and just thinking that this person will do more stuff and allow us to see more patients and be more productive and increase treatment acceptance. That wasn't the case. It didn't help. In fact, it hurt. And what's happened over time is knowing how many people to have in the front office. You can look into production numbers. You can look into how many patients you're seeing each day. There's lots of ways to look at it. But if you take away one thing from this podcast, I would say get to know your front office as intimately as you can. Get to know how the processes and systems are working. Know exactly what's going on up there day to day, and also get to know your front office team members and communicate with them so well that they will be completely transparent with you on what they need to do a great job in your practice. In my practice, it looked something like this over the past couple years. We brought on 3 front office team members. It didn't work out. We went back down to 2, made it work. Added a 3rd person again. Worked for some time, had someone in the office move away, had someone pursue another opportunity, went back down to front office team members. And so we were in this fluctuation, and finally I said, you know what, I'm just going to collaborate so closely with my 2 front office team members now to see what they need and how we're going to staff the front office and what we're going to do. So we sat down together, and I highly encourage this, whether it's through quarterly reviews or in our case, I meet with every division of the office monthly. I meet with the front office group, I meet with the hygienists, and I meet with the assistants. And sometimes we do this all together with monthly meetings or with other check-ins. So I sat down with the front office and we just discussed, what do we need to grow? What do you all want to do? Everyone in the office understands that if we add more people and we want to continue to make production and collections-based bonuses, we've got to be more productive. And my 2 front office team members, who are awesome people, and I can tell you they're so good at what they do, which is very tough to find and very tough to cut. And so when I sat down with my 2 front office team members, it was just very honest. It was an honest conversation about, what do you all think we should do? And I remember this conversation very clearly. They said, Doc, we have a great thing going here. We have divided the duties of the front office very well. We work very well together and we communicate together. Please don't hire a 3rd person right now. We want to handle this ourselves. And I said, that's awesome. I think you all are doing a great job. What do you need from me at this point? Like, where do I come into this picture? Because if you've got this, that is incredible. I want to take my hands off the wheel and I want you all to run with it. And they basically said, we've got this and we will let you know when we need something different. And that was so profound, and I was so proud of my team for saying this, because I knew then that we had established a trust with each other. We had established open communication, and I know they're going to come to me if we continue to grow and we see more patients each day or we add hygiene days. I know they're going to come to me and say, Doc, we need help, or we need to figure out a solution for XYZ. One of the examples, and you can evaluate this in your own practice, was insurance verifications. Insurance verifications are time consuming if you're doing it in person or making a phone call for every patient or submitting those verifications manually through all the insurance portals. It's very time consuming. And so I noticed, and my insurance coordinator noticed, that this was taking a ton of time, and anytime she got interrupted on a phone call, let's say she was on hold with an insurance company to verify somebody's insurance, she got interrupted, she would have to hang up and start all over again. So we put our brains together and we implemented an automatic verification system. We found a very good vendor to do this for us, and now we use technology to automate a lot of this. We pay more money to make this happen, but by adding a service like this, it's freeing up my team members' time in the practice to focus on patients, which is such a huge key. We don't want our team members, our finest assets in our practice, to get lost in the weeds of being on hold with someone overseas trying to figure out insurance verification. So originally, when we outsourced this and we had the ability to verify insurance with a third-party company, the plan was to just do it when we got busy, to just do it when it was a time in the practice where we just didn't have the capacity with my 2 front office team members to verify all the insurance and get everything ready for the next day's patients. We would outsource it and then free up time to do whatever needed to be done in the practice. And as we've continued to grow, I see the bill every month for the third-party service, and it goes up because they're utilizing it more. And I love that. That is totally fine, because they are making the decision to outsource more and more so that they can focus on tasks that really only they can do in the practice. And so if you're listening to this You may have one front office team member, you may have 5 front office team members. It doesn't really matter. What truly matters is that you're fully aware of what they're doing, how they're performing their jobs by checking in and not just turning a blind eye and holding yourself up in your office and not really paying attention to what's going on. And checking in with them to see how things are going on a regular basis. I mentioned our check-ins that we have monthly, and a lot of the time those check-ins go something like this. Every time we have a lunch meeting or a check-in, I buy the team or the specific team members that I'm meeting with lunch, and we sit down, and usually the first question that comes out of my mouth is, how's it going? What's going well? What's not going well? How can I help? And we just talk. If things are status quo, sometimes those meetings go like this. Things are going well, Doc. We don't have anything to really talk about. And I say, great. And then we chit chat lunch, and I get to have a solid half hour or an hour with my team members to just get to know them as people and get to know what's going on in their lives. Sometimes specific problems come up, like the insurance verification thing I just mentioned, and we work through solutions and then we implement them. But again, one of the biggest keys is that we all feel comfortable going to one another if we need help, if we need to work through a problem. And we have an understanding that if we're not communicating about everything, and we have an understanding also that if we're not bringing up problems or proposing solutions, we know that everything's good. We're not hiding things. We're not letting things build up to where they blow up and become these big things, or gosh forbid, people quit or get angry or leave. And that is a specific culture decision that you should be making in your practice, to have your door always be open to feedback from your team member. The worst thing you can do is bury your head in the sand or pretend that the front office isn't your area of expertise, so you're not going to care one bit about what's going on up there, or act like you don't have any control of what's going on, and leave your front office to their own devices just to do whatever. Sometimes that can work out, but more often than not, you're going to have problems that build up over time until they become unmanageable and you're left to pick up the pieces. So big key number 1, to reiterate, I know I've said it multiple times already, open communication with your front office team. You will know if you have great communication with these team members, you will know when you need to add somebody else, because they will come to you and say, Doc, here's what we need. Here's what we're feeling. What can we do about it? Or they'll come to you and say, Doc, here's something that's happening, and here's what we'd like to do to fix that problem. Now, there's a second key to figuring out your front office staffing, and that is you've got to be aware of some of the, I'd say, key metrics to your practice and monitoring those, I'd say, monthly, to make sure that things aren't slipping or changing. To manage and run a successful practice, you do not have to have a dashboard full of statistics and metrics that you're analyzing constantly. Find the lowest hanging fruit and keep an eye on those. I'll give you some of those low-hanging fruit that I monitor in my own practice, and honestly, they're quite simple. I monitor each month the amount of treatment acceptance percentage, the amount of accounts receivable in our practice, and the aging of insurance claims. So I'll break all those down very quickly, and I think you can do this literally with maybe an hour each month or less to check in on the health of your front office. Amount of production. So the first metric, amount of production treatment plan. Every practice is going to be different with the amount of treatment that you're treatment planning, if by a dollar amount. If you're a super dentist who can do surgery all on 4, all specialty procedures, your amount of treatment planning each month is probably going to be higher than someone who only does crown and bridge. But I check in on this each month to make sure it's either staying consistent or growing based on the growth of our practice. And I want to make sure that, truthfully, I'm not slipping and my clinical team isn't slipping in the effort that we're giving to treatment plan comprehensive dentistry for our patients. Metric number 2, treatment acceptance percentage. You don't have to get in the weeds with this. You don't have to have an analytical dashboard to tell you these numbers. I take a rough look at the amount we've treatment planned that month and then the amount that we're producing. I take a look at the amount of treatment that we're treatment planning each month. I take a look at what the schedule looks like. And are we consistently booking out to goal? Is that changing? Are we all of a sudden having days or weeks where we're not booked to goal? And if I know that something's off here, then I'm going to dig into why that might be happening and figure out a solution. But since I'm monitoring this each month and my team knows I'm monitoring this, we don't see this roller coaster of production treatment plan or production on the schedule because it's something that we're all focusing on. Metric 3 and 4, the accounts receivable in the practice and outstanding insurance claims. This is something that I see a lot of doctors just truthfully not monitoring, maybe because they don't know to do it, they don't know how to do it, but it's very easy to run a report in your practice to see what have we produced and what's still out there to collect. And if that number is growing, if that number is more than, say, a month of your average production, or it's just continuing to grow and grow, then you're not getting claims out on time. You're not collecting at the time of service or sending statements to patients who owe for their treatment. And that's an issue. That's something we have to monitor. Same thing with outstanding insurance claims. We all know that you don't just send an insurance claim and get immediately reimbursed. Insurance companies do this by design. They will delay claims getting paid. They will make it more difficult for you to get paid. And if you don't have your team on top of this, that number grows. And for some, it can grow catastrophically. Multiple clients of my own have opened their eyes to this and found thousands and thousands of old claims, outstanding claims that aren't getting paid on. And at some point, you can't get paid on those if you wait too long. So it's as simple as monitoring this each month. And if you start to see these numbers get out of whack for what is normal for your practice, don't just hope that it gets better. Utilize that open line of communication with your front office team. Tell them what you're seeing and see how you can improve. When I run this report each month, if I see an insurance claim that's outstanding and hasn't been paid for over 30 days, oftentimes I will send it to my front office and ask for an update or a report on what's going on. But now that we've gotten this down to a system, I can't tell you the last time I've done that because I know they're on top of it. They know I'm watching and they know that they are doing a great job if they are keeping our outstanding claims and our A&R at a manageable level. And as it applies to front office staffing, I know this will happen in my practice. It'll happen in yours if you're monitoring your front office metrics. If your treatment acceptance percentage starts to go down, if your accounts receivable starts to go up, your outstanding insurance claims start to grow, and you go to your front office team to figure out a solution, at some point they're going to be maxed out with their time and their effort. And you all can collaborate so as to say, okay, it is time to hire someone else or outsource some of these tasks to make sure our practice is still running efficiently and has room to continue to grow if growth is one of your goals. If you're watching the video podcast of this episode, you've seen how I've gone from light to almost dark and you can barely see my face now. So that's probably my cue to wrap it up. I could talk about this all day long, but to summarize, 2 keys in my mind to determining the appropriate amount of people in your front office. One, and most important, is establish a culture of open communication and collaboration with your front office team members and your entire team for that matter. Number 2, identify some key metrics. You could use the ones I suggested. You could find your own for your practice. Identify a few key numbers and key metrics that you are keeping tabs on regularly to make sure that nothing is getting out of whack, nothing's getting off the rails with how your front office is running. If you do those 2 things, your front office and your practice will run much more efficiently, and you will know either yourself or from the communication you have with your team when it's time to add another front office team member and grow in your practice. But at the end of the day, you've got to own this. You can't just throw more people at problems and expect things to magically get better. Now, if you're listening to this and you can honestly say, I don't know how to monitor these things in my practice. I don't know enough about insurance. I don't know where to start. Or maybe I have someone in the front office who I'm not able to communicate with. That's the beauty of practice ownership. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You've got to figure it out. And so if you want some help with that, shoot me an email, matt@thelifestylepractice.com. That's what I do. That's what my partners Derek and Steve do. We love getting in the weeds with our clients on how to set up not just the front office, but all the systems in your practice to build your very own lifestyle practice and continue to grow at the pace that you want and really create a practice that allows you to be driving like I am on a Wednesday night to go visit family for a long weekend. That's the beauty of having a practice that runs efficiently, allows you to do the things you want to do in your life. If this was helpful, not helpful, you want me to talk about something specific in the front office or more about this topic, again, reach out to me, matt@thelifestylepractice.com. Go to our website. Feel free to reach out through the contact forms there and let me know what you think. You can also go to Facebook and search TLP Podcast and request to join our private Facebook group. Oftentimes topics like this are popping up in the forum there, and lots of very talented doctors are collaborating to find solutions for each other. Again, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will talk to you again soon. Cheers. Sicker than your average, sicker than your average. Sicker than your average, sicker than your average.